Okay, so with us now being officially done with Heroes Reborn, we now enter the era better known as Heroes Return. Now, Heroes Return was really more the actual outcome of Heroes Reborn, where you had the heroes who were put in the Heroes Reborn reality come back into the main Marvel universe. Now, real quickly, I kind of want to sit down and re-explain what Heroes Reborn was and how we got to Heroes Return. You see, when it came to Marvel Comics, they had this event called Avengers X-Men Onslaught. With that event right there, what they did was they used that event to kind of push characters out of the main Marvel universe. And reason why? Because those characters were no longer selling. You see, behind the scenes, you had Marvel make deals with old creators like Jim Lee to bring them back into Marvel Comics to kind of help revive the characters they had that were no longer selling, like Iron Man, the Avengers. And so with Avengers X-Men Onslaught, once you had our heroes defeat Onslaught, you had the Avengers go into Onslaught, and then they were transported into the Heroes Reborn reality, where old creators came back to Marvel, and with this brand new reality, they could give characters a fresh start in that new reality, and also hopefully bring back fans into comics. So Iron Man, Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Captain America, they all got fresh start in this brand new reality, and it only lasted a year. Now, I'm not going to sit down and try to explain why it didn't work out. Just know that there were a lot of issues that popped up when it came to why Heroes Reborn was not going to work. But at the end of Heroes Reborn, you didn't have Peter David be the guy to bring the heroes back into the main Marvel universe. And of course, that leads into the Heroes Return era, where now you have all these new creative teams coming in the late 1990s to work on these different books to bring those heroes back into the main Marvel universe. So Avengers, Thor, Fantastic Four, Iron Man. There were a lot of books that got launched when it came to Heroes Return. But today, I want to sit down and talk about the Avengers. Because one of the new creative teams was Kurt Buisek and George Perez. Now, this was pretty huge to get those two guys to come together to work on the Avengers. And for me personally, it worked because I realized for a lot of folks out there, this was their Avengers book. Like, when they say, hey, you know what? My favorite era of the Avengers was this one right here. Kurt Busiek, George Perez working together on the Avengers, and a lot of folks loved it. But for me, it kind of seemed like it was Marvel trying to get back to normal with the Avengers. And honestly, it felt like this was the right move. Now, today's video, we're only covering the first story arc that took place in the first 3 issues of the brand new Avengers 1998 series in the Heroes Return era. And so to kick off our coverage over this storyline, we do pick up with Avengers #1 first. Now, this is the longest chapter of the 3-part story arc because with it being a #1 issue, of course, it got extra pages in there. But as we get into the opening pages of this issue, we do pick up with Quicksilver, who's hanging out with Scarlet Witch and Crystal. Now, for Quicksilver, he loves the idea that his family is finally back together again. Because for the Scarlet Witch and also for Crystal, they went into the Heroes Reborn reality. So unfortunately for Quicksilver, he was just left behind, but at least he had his daughter with him. But then while you have the 4 characters right now trying to have, lunch or dinner together, out of nowhere, they're then attacked by some creatures. And it doesn't really stop there because as we do switch over to Albuquerque, we do pick up with Firebird, who's just minding her business, trying to have a quiet day, but then out of nowhere, she's also being attacked by creatures. And the same thing goes to the Black Panther as well, while being in Wakanda in the middle of a wedding. Like, we're now seeing different characters just being attacked by these different creatures who are popping up left and right out of nowhere. And this trend kind of continues across the entire world, where you do have different people who used to be part of the Avengers in the past are just getting attacked by these different creatures. So, like She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Namor, Spider-Woman. Like, you have all these different characters who were part of the Avengers in the past being attacked by all these different creatures. But then out of nowhere, all these different creatures just disappeared. And so now for our heroes, they're kind of wondering like, what in the world is going on here? Now, word got out very quickly to the public. And really for me, I kind of want to use this page to explain what happened when it came to the heroes disappearing in the main Marvel universe. Because when it came to the Avengers and Fantastic Four, when they disappeared into the Heroes Reborn reality, for the people in the main Marvel universe, they believed those heroes had died when it came to the final moments against Onslaught. They had no idea that technically they were in a different reality. And so when it came to heroes coming back into the main Marvel universe, well, for the public, they're kind of happy, but at the same time, they're kind of confused as well. Like, hey, where were you guys for one entire year? But either way, with our heroes now being back and now our heroes being, attacked by all these different creatures, you now have the core members of the Avengers meeting up to figure out what exactly is going on. Now, technically, at this point right now in Marvel's timeline, there are no Avengers because when our heroes had disappeared to the Heroes Reborn reality, the reserve members of the team, they did not go out of their way to carry on the name of the Avengers. Matter of fact, they let the name die when the heroes had disappeared into the Heroes Reborn reality. So you had new teams pop up like the Thunderbolts to replace the Avengers. But with that being said, with Iron Man, Captain America, the Wasp, and also Ant-Man, our Giant Man, being there, they're all right now trying to figure out like, one, why in the world the Avengers name wasn't carried on while they were gone, but two, why are all the old members of the Avengers currently being attacked by all these different creatures? And then also, where in the world did those creatures go to? Because they just vanished out of nowhere. But then our heroes are confronted by, well, Thor. Now, with Thor being here, it does kind of answer a few questions for us, and let me explain. Because when it came to the end of Heroes Reborn, you had our heroes begin to travel back to the main Marvel universe, but you had Doctor Doom wanting to siphon off the powers of Franklin Richards for his own. And so you had Thor go out of his way to stop Doctor Doom from doing that. The problem was that Thor and Doctor Doom did not follow the rest of the heroes as they went back into the Heroes Reborn reality. So we were kind of left to wonder what happened to Thor and also Doctor Doom. Now, Thor apparently had made it back to the main Marvel universe. But right now, this is a guy who's freaking out. And the reason why, because he feels like the entire world, or possibly all the different realms that are tied to Asgard, are possibly in danger. And so now it's Steve, Iron Man, and also Thor saying like, okay, well, also Wasp and Giant Man as well. But they're all saying, okay, we need to get the Avengers back together. If Thor's freaking out, that means things are going to pop off very soon. And so the following day, you now pick up with Hawkeye and the Scarlet Witch arriving back to Avengers Mansion for the first time, being back into this reality, because Hawkeye and also Scarlet Witch, they were also in the Heroes Reborn reality. Not all the different members of the Avengers went into Heroes Reborn. Only like the more popular characters on that team went into the Heroes Reborn reality. And I guess a couple that were not really popular, but like they got thrown in there as well. But either way, when Hawkeye and the Scarlet Witch do arrive at Avengers Mansion, they realize they were not the only ones called there. Like, it's not just the core Avengers team. That matter of fact, it's everyone who was part of the Avengers in the past leading up to this moment right here. And also reserve members as well, like Spider-Man. So you got Spider-Man there, you got Spider-Woman there, you got She-Hulk is there again. You also got Hercules, Beast is also there. So like, if they were part of the Avengers in the past, they are officially there for this meeting as well. Now, not everyone truly answered the call, because for some people, they died while being on the Avengers team, or they died their own solo adventures. But also, like, you have some heroes who are just too busy at the moment, like the Fantastic Four. They're busy at the moment. And well, you have the Hulk who says no, because as you all know, there is a lot of bad blood between the Hulk and the Avengers. Now, you do have the Avengers begin their meeting, right? Now, before we dive into like what's Thor like going to tell us, I kind of want to point out that you have Spider-Man leave. And the reason why, because I feel like it was Marvel kind of telling us like, hey, listen, I know you fans out there want Spider-Man on the Avengers. It's not going to happen here either. And so he does leave the book. Now, it also says like had his own problems going on around that time in Marvel Comics. But we also get reminded that Sandman was an Avenger in the past, and he's still there right now. So it's kind of cool to see him there again. And so now you have Thor begin to tell us like what exactly happened to him after the idea of the heroes coming back into the main Marvel universe. You see, for him and Doctor Doom, they had continued to battle, but the thing was they battled between the two realities, the Heroes Reborn reality and the main Marvel Universe reality. But either way, as their battle continues on, and matter of fact, continue on to a different plane of existence, you didn't have Thor wake up in Asgard. The problem is that when he does wake up, he realized that Asgard has been completely wrecked. Like, it is destroyed, and he can't find anyone there at all. In the Rainbow Bridge, that's usually there to kind of help people get to different realms that are connected to Asgard, it has also been destroyed as well. And so for Thor, he's wondering like, okay, what exactly happened? And so you didn't have Thor try to walk around Asgard, kind of hoping to at least find somebody, one of his companions. But the problem is, he can't find anyone at all. Now, he does travel across all the different realms, right? And he does head over to the Sea of Eternal Night. Now, I'm not really going to sit down and try to explain what that's about, because it's not really important for the overall story. What really is that in that area, you have the Twilight Sword missing. Now, with the Twilight Sword missing, it's very important. I'll explain why here in a moment. But you also have Thor realize another piece of the Rainbow Bridge was also there as well. As he touched it, it led him into Chicago of Earth. And for Thor, he realized what was going on here, that with the Rainbow Bridge being broken, it broke into many pieces. Those pieces had fallen into different realms across the 9 realms that are all connected by Asgard. And so the creatures we saw earlier, they were drawn to the pieces of the Rainbow Bridge that had fallen in their area. And of course, they were all transported over to Earth. Now, getting into the idea of the Twilight Sword, it was created out of a burning galaxy by Surtur. And the thing is, the Twilight Sword has the ability to wipe out reality, or possibly, if someone does wield it, they can recreate reality in their own image. And that right there is very dangerous. And so for Thor, he also tells us that the North Stones are also here on Earth as well. Now, there are 5 in total, and right now they're across the world. And so for Thor, what he wants to do is split everyone up to 5 different teams to go out of their way to find the stones and bring them back to him. And so just like that, you have the Avengers go out there to hopefully find all 5 stones. Now, we kind of focus more on Steve Rogers' team out of all 5 teams here, because you do have Steve Rogers' team head over to the location of where one of the North Stones could possibly be at. Except when those heroes arrive at that location, they're caught in this like wild storm. And so you do have the Avengers kind of work together to get their Quinjet through the actual storm. The problem is that once they do, they find the Twilight Sword. It's just there. And for our heroes, they're kind of wondering like, okay, why in the world is the Twilight Sword there just laying there? Also, our heroes had no idea how big the actual sword was. But you did have our heroes be confronted by Mordred. Now, I'm not really going to sit down and kind of give you guys a full breakdown of this character. Just know that when it comes to Mordred, he is the son to King Arthur. Now, here's the thing, because for King Arthur, he was told in a prophecy that one of his children will be his downfall, technically, and that child being born in May. And so what he did was every child he had that was born in May, he was trying to kill them off in the middle of the sea. Mordred survived and found his way back to his mother. And so over the years, he always been kind of an issue for, the different characters in Marvel Comics. Now, he's alive again, and for our heroes, they're kind of wondering like, okay, why in the world is he here for? Now, you do have Quicksilver try his best to get his sister back, because as soon as he had appeared, he was able to send out a few creatures to grab the Scarlet Witch. And so once you do have our heroes defeat Mordred, they realize that he was only a distraction. Because the real actual enemy here is Morgan Le Fay. Now, Morgan Le Fay being this 400-year-old sorceress who has been trying to rule over the world, but also like she is the aunt to, or the aunt, sorry, I say aunt sometimes, the aunt to Mordred. When it comes to Morgan Le Fay, she now has the ability to take over the world because she now has the Twilight Sword and the North Stones as well. Now, at first, she wasn't really able to access that type of magic. And the reason why, because, well, it's Asgardian magic. But now she has the Scarlet Witch. That's why she got captured earlier, to be that bridge between her magic, for Morgan Le Fay's magic, but also Asgardian magic. And so with the Scarlet Witch now being that bridge for her, Morgan Le Fay is able to change reality into her own image. And so we kind of get our first look at what that reality would be like when it comes to Morgan Le Fay being the one in charge of that reality. So we get this medieval time where medieval times taking place across the entire planet. Now, for the Avengers are kind of like her special forces, her bodyguards, and every single member of the Avengers you saw in the last chapter, they're now part of this storyline and unfortunately being controlled by Morgan Le Fay. I kind of like Mordred in the storyline, and the reason why, because for Mordred, he's that person who's kind of realizing that Morgan Le Fay is being careless, because with the Avengers just being out there as bodyguards, he kind of feels like the Avengers should be locked away, because if they're not, then most likely they're going to find a way to ruin her plans down the road. And technically, the dude is correct. Now, when it comes to Thor, he's the first example of that, because with Thor, he's kind of wondering how the god of thunder is now a soldier for Morgan Le Fay here on Midgard, here on Earth. But it's also Thor want to know about his past as well. Now, you also have Thor see Vision. And for Vision, he is another servant for Morgan Le Fay, but he recognizes Vision. And so he begins to freak out. And you have Thor leave to go to Asgard to hopefully figure out who he truly is and how in the world did he get to this point right here. Now, for Mordred, he begins to freak out as well, because that's just one Avenger. Sooner or later, the other Avengers are going to be able to break free from her spell and try to stop her. But for Morgan Le Fay, again, she's not really that concerned. Now, the Scarlet Witch, she's still locked up in the castle that belongs to Morgan Le Fay, because without the Scarlet Witch, that means Morgan Le Fay's magic is not going to work. She has to make sure the Scarlet Witch is with her at all times to be that bridge for her magic, but also for Asgardian magic as well. Now, for Steve Rogers, he already begun the process of remembering everything from his past. Like, he knows that this reality should not even exist at all. And so his first main goal is to get different people onto his side who are part of the Avengers. He finds Hawkeye and he tells Hawkeye, you need to remember. Just like that, Hawkeye now remembers his actual past. Now, for Steve Rogers, he kind of realized for his plan to properly work, he has to go after different people who had a strong sense of being an Avenger. So when it comes to Hawkeye, he had that strong sense. And so for Steve, he realized it has to be other people who are very similar to Hawkeye that he'll be able to get them back on his side. And once he does that and have an army of people, they should be able to bring down Morgan Le Fay. Now, you do have our two heroes being able to get the Wasp and also Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel at the time, to their side. Now, they also try to get Iron Man. The problem is they can't get Iron Man. And the reason why, because for Tony Stark, he's way too in the idea of being this nobleman, this lord of this area in this brand new reality. And so the spell from Morgan Le Fay is working pretty well on Tony Stark. But of course, with him now seeing Steve and also Hawkeye, he kind of believes they're traitors and they have to be taken down. This starts a whole commotion inside the castle, which of course brings other people, other Avengers who are still under Morgan Le Fay control. Now, for Captain America, he does begin to give a speech, hoping that it will bring more people to his side. And technically, it does work. Like, for example, Justice. Now, for Justice, he's a very interesting character, and here's the reason why. Because the dude is not even an Avenger at all. And matter of fact, when it came to all those different heroes arriving at Avengers Mansion, even back then, he was not even an Avenger. He just showed up. But either way, he got involved in this mess. But he was able to break free from Morgan Le Fay's spell. Now, it does seem like Steve might get everyone on his side until you have a hothead character like Namor basically stop that right in his track. Now, you do have Morgan Le Fay be warned about what's exactly happening when it comes to the Avengers. And so you do have Morgan Le Fay wanting to get involved and kind of figure out like what exactly is going on out there, except she didn't realize there's something else going on. Like, she feels like something's about to happen. And we do shift over to the Scarlet Witch for a brief moment, and we see that she's calling out. She's calling to something, and something is trying to answer her call. That something will turn to someone coming very soon. But getting back over to the Avengers, you do have the Avengers fighting against each other. You have one side that has been able to break away from Morgan Le Fay's control, but the other side, unfortunately, they're still under her control. Now, you do have Morgan Le Fay reveal herself to the Avengers, and really, the ones who are still under her spell, they listen to her very easily. The ones who broke free, of course, they're beginning to walk away from her spell. But you do have those heroes believe that they can find a way to defeat Morgan Le Fay. Now, you do have Thor also reappear as well. And when Thor reappears, he has also broke away from her spell. Now, you do have Monica Rambeau being able to use her powers to kind of give our heroes a chance to escape. But to close on this chapter, we do switch over to the Scarlet Witch. And when we do, it's really more of her finally getting that answer to her call for help. And the thing is, that call for help is no other than Wonder Man. It's him reappearing after dying a while back in Marvel Comics to help out the Scarlet Witch. Now, when it came to Wonder Man, he had died in an earlier storyline, really more in Force Works storyline. I want to say it was the first mission they came together. And Force Works was a series used as a way to replace the West Coast Avengers after you had Marvel cancel the series. But you had the Skrulls go ahead and kill off Wonder Man. They were also trying to kill off the Vision, but of course, the Vision had survived. But as we do switch over to the third chapter, we're now picking up with Steve Rogers right now and training the few Avengers who had technically agreed to come with him, but he's the only one really feels confident in the idea that sooner or later Morgan Le Fay is going to mess up. And technically he's right, because as we saw earlier, she was being somewhat careless when it came to her now being in full control of the entire world, this reality. Now, for Morgan Le Fay, we see that she's very upset about the idea that the Scarlet Witch has somehow gotten away. And this is really a huge problem, because for the Scarlet Witch to be gone now, that was Morgan's bridge to allow her the ability to use Asgardian magic. Without the Scarlet Witch being around, there's now a possibility of the Avengers being able to turn this reality back to normal. And so you do have her kind of freaking out and interrogating the different guards who were assigned to watch over the Scarlet Witch. But unfortunately, no one knows how she was able to escape. We know, but of course, they don't know yet. Now, you do have Morgan Le Fay kind of tell the Avengers who were able to break away from her spell that to give the Scarlet Witch back to her, because she believes that the Avengers who, are free at the moment, they're the ones who had freed the Scarlet Witch. But in reality, they don't have her. And matter of fact, for the Avengers, this is them finding out the Scarlet Witch is no longer with Morgan Le Fay, which means for Steve Rogers, he was right. That right now it's Morgan Le Fay continuing to make mistakes. But now the Avengers know they might have a chance to finally defeat her with the idea of the Scarlet Witch no longer being around. Now we kind of switch over to the Scarlet Witch and Wonder Man. Now when we do, it's really more of Wonder Man trying to explain how he was able to come back to life, because for Wonder Man, he died. A being made of pure ionic energy was literally broken apart completely when it came to Kree just killing him off. But it's him saying that something out there made him want to hold on, to not actually die. But also the idea of the Scarlet Witch calling out for him, calling out for help technically, was kind of enough for him to pull himself together to come back to actually help her out. Now, for Wonder Man, we kind of get the idea that with him having feelings for the Scarlet Witch and want to be with her, that it was strong enough to allow him the chance to pull himself back together to help her. Now, this kind of leads into the ending of the storyline, because as we do switch over to really the Avengers who were able to break away from Morgan Le Fay's spell, they try to sneak into her castle. Unfortunately, they are caught by the Avengers who are still with her. And so you do have the Avengers begin to battle against one another. Now, for Morgan Le Fay, she is loving the fact what she's seeing at the moment. The idea of the Avengers fighting against each other. But you do have her nephew once again try to say, look at you, you're being careless. Sooner or later, this is going to backfire. And the thing is, he's correct, but you do have her take out her nephew. Now, once she does that, you then have the Scarlet Witch appear. And this is why I say we're getting into the actual end, the story arc, because for the Scarlet Witch, it's her right now trying to fight against Morgan Le Fay. And technically it's not her, it's Wonder Man. But you had a Scarlet Witch powering up Wonder Man to allow him the ability to bring down Morgan Le Fay. Now for Morgan Le Fay, she's just too powerful. But you then have the different members of the Avengers begin to switch sides and give their energy over to the Scarlet Witch, who of course then powers up the Wonder Man, not the Wonder Man, just Wonder Man, even more, to allow him the ability to defeat Morgan Le Fay. Now, before he does, what really does set off the Scarlet Witch is when you have Morgan Le Fay attack the body of Vision, who was still somewhat kind of under her control or really just there. And so with him being attacked, and of course, for Wanda having feelings for Vision, it made her more upset, allowing her to give more energy to Wonder Man to allow him to defeat Morgan Le Fay. Now, we're kind of left to believe that both characters are supposedly dead, but you didn't have the Avengers kind of wonder what's next for them, because they have all these different members of the Avengers here, which means it's now time to bring down the actual roster to a few members of the Avengers. And the question is now, who will be on this brand new Avengers team post Heroes Reborn. With that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. See you next time, guys. Later.